do me a favor. Go back to the beginning of the season, during preview magazine season where we were talking about the teams that could be on the rise and the teams that were slowly collapsing and who was facing pressure going into 2023. And then go back and look at this Michigan team and tell yourself, yeah, they can't win a national championship. They can't get the job done in 2023. Okay, now that you know everything that went on with the sign stealing scandal, take that out of context and still realize this was a team that always had the opportunity and the power to go ahead and hoist up the title. So what went right for them last night down in Houston? Let's go ahead and talk about it. But if you are new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, plus coaching searches, transfer portal, really anything going on in the offseason, simply because the clock has struck zero on 2023 does not mean we are stopping doing content anytime soon here. So make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on where does this win rank in the history of all the 10 college football playoffs of 4-team era? Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, your best of bros, Michigan fans, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we are on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and give me a follow on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. I call it Twitter. You can call it X. Who really cares what Elon wants to call it? But that way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. Okay, so Michigan, first time since 1997, can say we are the victors. We actually live up to our name. Yeah, you hailed the victors this morning because of we dominated. We came, we saw, we conquered, we delivered, we took names, we kicked ass, and more importantly, we handled business in opportunities when the lights were at its brightest. And to me, that was the biggest difference in this game. I look at these two teams and they are elite by every standard of the word. I know that a lot of people are going to say, how can you call Washington elite after what you saw last night? Case in point, they had the most ranked wins in college football. They had a Heisman Trophy worthy quarterback commanding the huddle. They had a Biletnikoff Award worthy wide receiver on the outside, plus 2 future NFL studs that automatically were going to be difference makers for this team. They handled business throughout the Pac-12 and they lived up to the underdog hype. So yeah, they're an elite team, but elite teams are elite not because of they're flawed or not flawed, but because of they embrace their strengths and they don't try to teeter or come up with different ideas. But it's moments where you realize you have to capitalize, which is where I think Michigan won the battle in this game. Physicality, finesse, and most importantly, setting the tone and really the precipice for the rest of the game. You start off really, really strong. Talking about the way that you were able to maneuver the ball on the ground with a guy like Blake Corum. We all knew Blake Corum was going to get his, but how many people saw Donovan Edwards being the breakout star in this game? I mean, yeah, you thought that you were going to have to pass the football, but why worry about that when you have 2 stud running backs that are able to go for over 100 yards? On 6 carries, Donovan Edwards surpassed the triple-digit marker. Started off really strong with a 46-yard touchdown run. A couple drives later, lo and behold, same thing, only this time 49 yards. You watched his number 7, who this entire year kind of accepted his role of being the number 2 guy. Last season stepped up extremely well down the stretch. Big Ten championship game, blows past Purdue, goes in the Fiesta Bowl, another 100 yards against TCU, but understands I have to be a part of a team first. There is no I in team except in the a-hole, and I'm not that guy. So let me go ahead and just be a part of something special. And then when his number got called, he made the most of it. They set the tone very early in this game. The other thing that I thought was really important, you watch the way this defense capitalized. They didn't get a lot of sacks in this game, but what they did do was they pressured Michael Penix like he had not been pressured the entire season. And that's a testament to the style of defenses that are run in the Midwest versus the one on the West Coast, Best Coast. But that's neither the point or here nor there. Last week against Texas, the Longhorns, one of the better defensive lines, couldn't pressure Penix into making these type of mistakes. We saw him. He threw for over 330 yards. He had 4 touchdowns in that game. He was the reason why they were hoisting up the MVP trophy and the Sugar Bowl title and moving on to the next stage, even though everyone thought Texas was the better team. It was the ability to create pressure and create opportunities for errant passes and mistimed throws. And that really was the case. You realized in this game, we know standing on that sideline are 3 wide receivers that anyone could beat us at any given moment. So what do? We keep it all in front of us. And they took away the deep ball. One pass of over 30 yards downfield. And that was to Roma Dunze finally in the fourth quarter. There was the other one that should have been a play, but there was the holding call. We can go tit for tat with that one, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. Outside of that, you kept everything in front of you. And then when momentum started to gain a little bit of ground with the offense, there you were, coming up, making big-time plays. Will Johnson started the second half. Big interception, first play of the half. That really was a reason why everyone in Washington saw the life kind of get sucked out of them, and they're now looking down at the Grim Reaper, and they're like, oh, please don't take my soul. Like, that was that moment, because you're coming off of an exceptional drive right before halftime. You find the back of the end zone. This is where Washington usually pounces, and you took that away. You also were able to go ahead and force a couple of big 3-and-outs. You also were able to hold them to field goals. This was an opportunity for you to kind of be able to say, in moments where we need our team to step up, it was great. And it wasn't perfect, but you never are going to see perfection when it comes to championship games. There always will be flaws. You look at J.J. McCarthy, was far from perfect passing the football, but when the time stepped up, he came and delivered. Big-time first down run, being able to find Colson Loveland for arguably the biggest game and the most monumental moment of the entire second half, because it set up the Blake Corum run. And then we had a palindrome. Palindrome, of course, meaning start, finish, the same. So you look at the way that Michigan started the game, they ended it the exact same. Scorching red hot and hailing to the victors, knowing that they were the better team. And so that's really the case when it came to Michigan. They handled business in opportune moments. They allowed the stage to be their canvas, and they painted a perfect picture when the moments called for it. Now, the other thing that's really important here, this was just a very physically fundamental team, and it started a few years ago. Let's go back to 2020 real fast, because that's where I really think this version of Michigan truly unfolded. It was COVID year. They went 2-4. Harbaugh at that time was going through a lot of gripe, and there was a lot of animosity among the fan base. Many people wanted to see a coaching switch in that offseason, because you don't go 2-4 at Michigan. It doesn't matter if it's a COVID year. It doesn't matter if you have opt-outs. You still expect grandeur things when you put on the maize and blue. And so Harbaugh, who completely changed his offensive identity going into that season, it should be very thankful, actually, that he didn't play against a team like Ohio State that year. Because number one, Ohio State would have dismantled Michigan in that game, just simply based off of roster construction and the way that they ended up moving all the way to the national championship to face off against Alabama. The amount of talent that they had on offense opposite of Justin Fields was second to none. And if Harbaugh plays in that game, you have to wonder, is that a move where maybe they do decide to make the switch and not ask him to take a pay cut, but instead doesn't have to play them? So he goes into 2021 understanding this is a must-win year. And so what does he do? He embraces what he knows best. Physical, tough, no nonsense, alpha dog mentality. We'll beat you until you beat us type of persona. And that paved the way for this team. Watch the way that they practice throughout the regular season. Go talk to anybody who actually covers Michigan, and they'll tell you that the way that they set the tone throughout the week carries over onto Saturdays. And it's why most of the time you're nitpicking the flaws when it comes to Michigan. Michigan won the national title last night, and it was a flawed performance, but we're really nitpicking at this point. In the opportune moments, the ones that are going to be the highlights that people are going to talk about, they capitalized. And that's kind of the way they were throughout the season. They battled. They didn't have the best game plan every single week. I mean, go back and watch the Penn State game this past year. They couldn't throw the football. Doesn't mean that they don't know how to throw the football. They just couldn't get an offensive identity. So what do? They steer right into the skid. You know, when you're riding on black ice and you're supposed to be able to steer into the skid to avoid a collision? Yeah, that's kind of Michigan every single step along the way. No good passing attack. Okay, we're going to run it down your throat until you force us to pass. Special teams, it looks like a flaw. Doesn't matter. We're going to capitalize and force you to get 3-and-outs. That way we get the ball back, even if we do have to settle for a 3-pointer instead of 6, or we have to miss a field goal. You look at the way they played against Maryland. It was close. It was ugly. It was gritty. But in the moments that you had to step up, that was where you saw exceptional play from this Wolverines team. And it starts all the way with leadership at the top, and it carries down into the locker room. Many of you have heard me say this on this program before, and on the live shows that we're going to start doing next week, you'll hear me say it time and time again. There's something about the ability to have a locker room that's bought in late in the season that truly is immaculate. And it separates the pretenders from the contenders, in my opinion. The legit contenders and the up-and-comers that we like to hope are going to be good, but we don't know are going to be good. So when I look at this Michigan team, the fact that you didn't have Jim Harbaugh and you had all the outside noise going against you, and you had reasons to be able to say really any excuse possible after this game. Well, look at the teams that we played. Well, look at the schedule we went up against. We had never seen an offense like Washington before. The sign stealing scandal, certainly in the outside noise saying that this game was going to be just viewed as an asterisk next to our name. All of that could have derailed you. But it starts with the locker room and the way that they were able to rally in games where they didn't even need a coach. When you have a team that's built like Michigan, what you do is you have coaches there for babysitters. Make sure that they get to practice on time. Make sure that they're inside the weight room. Make sure that they're inside the study sessions. Make sure that they're inside the film study. Make sure that they're doing their diligence and they're not getting arrested. Like, that's what you have as a coach, because the locker room kind of takes over that role of leadership and they demand excellence from teammates. They hold people accountable. If you're not pulling your weight, they will drag you across that finish line and say, pick up the pace. We're not slowing down because you're not ready to handle it. And that was Michigan this entire year. They didn't need Jim Harbaugh to be successful. Look by the way that they were coached by Sharon Moore or the two other assistants that filled in at times. Look at the way that they were able to play their toughest stretch of games in conference play, and they still didn't miss a beat. There were struggles, but they didn't miss a beat. Continued down the pathway to victory. And then once they got to their three toughest games against defenses or offenses that were second to none, they once again handle business. Shutout against Iowa, dominant performance against Alabama defensively, mishaps offensively, but especially in overtime and in the fourth quarter, you finally gained that spark. And then you had a palindrome type of game against Washington. This was a season to remember because of it started 3 years ago. The culmination leading up to this moment started when Jim Harbaugh was willing to humble himself and go back to the basics. And that's what great coaches do. If you think that your way is always going to be the only way, you are soon going to be shown the unemployment line. And I don't know where you're going to land. Maybe ask Jimbo Fisher for a recommendation of what to do during the offseason. I look at this team and the fact that you saw the humility to be able to make the necessary changes for your roster to get back to the glory of what is supposed to be residing in Big Blue, residing in the big house, residing amongst the fans of Ann Arbor. That's what made this team special over the last 3 years. And it culminated with the victory on Monday night. This is going to be a team that will be forever remembered in Ann Arbor. This will be a team that I think will always be remembered in the history of college football, simply because of they're one of a handful of 15-0 rosters. But more importantly, this is a team that I think shows you, even though the sign stealing scandal will be attached to their name, we can't take it away. You can go ahead and say it doesn't matter. I can say it doesn't matter. The NCAA can throw down every single sanction possible. Just look at this roster and tell me that they were not good enough to win a national championship. Countless times of excellent execution, the opportune moments never seem too big, and the ability to always stay ahead of the curve. That's really what set the tone for a wonderful season in Ann Arbor. And how about this is for the college football playoff before we get on out of here? At the start, it was Ohio State beating up against a Pac-12 team to secure the first CFP national championship. And in the end, it was the rivals meeting up, hail to the victors, getting the last up.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.